When I first landed in the Philippines, I thought I knew what to expect. I mean, I have watched all the travel videos, read the blogs, even memorized some basic Tagalog phrases like salamat and magandang umaga. I was ready to experience the tropical islands, the friendly smiles, and of course, the amazing food. But what I was not ready for, absolutely 100% not ready for, was how personal Filipinos get with strangers. I mean, right away, on my first day in Manila, I hopped into a tricycle to explore a small neighborhood I'd heard was worth visiting. The driver, a middle-aged man with the sunburned face of someone who spends more hours under the tropical sun than in an office, greeted me warmly. "Hi, miss. Where are you from?" He asked in English with a slight Filipino accent. I smiled, thinking this was just small talk. I said, "I'm from America." "Ah, America. Nice. So, how old are you?" He asked casually. I froze for half a second, blinking at him, because in the States, that's considered rude. You don't ask strangers their age. But he just laughed when he saw my shocked expression. "Ah, don't worry, just curious, Filipino curiosity." I laughed nervously and tried to change the topic, but the questions kept coming. "Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have a boyfriend? How long will you stay in Manila?" It was a full interrogation, but with the friendliest tone imaginable. And here's the thing, I wasn't offended. Somehow, these questions, though extremely personal by American standards, felt genuine. They weren't nosy in a mean way. They were the way Filipinos connect. Over the next few days, I realized this was a pattern everywhere I went. At the small cafe in Cebu, the barista asked me, "Miss, what's your favorite food? Are you single?" In vegan, the street vendor selling empanadas leaned in and whispered, "You don't have a boyfriend yet?" And at a beach in Palawan, a local tour guide, after helping me set up my snorkeling gear, asked, "Do you like Filipino men?" At first, I laughed it off. Wow, I thought. This is a lot. These people are friendly, but why are they so personal so quickly? Then I started paying attention to the cultural logic behind it. In the Philippines, personal questions are not just curiosity. They're a way of establishing trust and connection. Asking about your life, your family, your relationships is the equivalent of saying, "I see you, I care about you. You belong here even if it's just for a day." I remember one day vividly. I was sitting in a small eatery in Davao, sipping a mango shake, when a group of older women at the next table invited me to sit with them. Before I could even respond, the questions began. "Where are you from? Are you married? Do you have siblings? Are your parents alive?" I laughed, trying to answer honestly while also dodging a few too personal ones. They all leaned in, nodding as I spoke, genuinely interested. And then they started giving me advice on life, love, and travel. It was warm, chaotic, and completely overwhelming in the best way possible. I noticed the same thing happens with Filipinos of all ages. Children will ask bluntly, "Are you married?" Teenagers will ask, "Do you have a boyfriend?" And older folks, well, they take it a step further, asking about your family, your parents' jobs, even your daily habits. In America, I'd have considered all of these questions too invasive, but in the Philippines, it's just a sign of trust. When someone asks you personal questions, it means they see you as part of their community, even temporarily. One evening, I was staying in a small guest house in Iloilo. The owner, a cheerful woman in her 60s, invited me to join her family for dinner. As we ate adobo and garlic rice, she asked about my parents, my siblings, my love life, and my career. I felt myself instinctively giving polite, vague answers, but she shook her head. No, tell me more. I want to know the real you. We don't judge, we just care." That moment stuck with me. Her curiosity was not invasive, it was intimate. Like, she was welcoming me into her circle, however briefly. And then I understood another layer. Filipinos believe in connection through empathy. They ask personal questions because they genuinely want to relate to you. If you tell them about your family, they'll tell you about theirs. If you mention your struggles, they'll share advice and encouragement. By asking personal questions, they invite you into their world, and in return, they become part of yours. It's a social contract of care. embedded deeply in the culture. I started to experiment with it myself. When a local man at a market asked me about my family, I answered. When the tour guide asked about my love life, I replied with a laugh. And something magical happened. The atmosphere changed. Conversations became more personal, more genuine, more memorable. People laughed with me, not at me. They offered help without me asking. They shared stories that would never have come up in a casual tourist encounter. One of my favorite moments happened in a tiny province in Mindoro. I was walking down a quiet street, taking photos of the colorful houses, when a woman sitting outside her home called me over. She immediately started asking questions. My age, where I was from, what I did for work, if I had family nearby. I answered hesitantly at first, but then I realized she was not just being nosy, she was curious. Yes, but also warm. By the end of the conversation, she invited me to a small fiesta the next day, insisting I join her family. That small interaction became the highlight of my trip there. I felt seen, welcomed, and genuinely part of the community for a few hours. I began to notice a funny side effect of this cultural habit. As a blonde American woman, I became a magnet for personal questions. Kids would tug at my arm and ask if I had a boyfriend. Strangers would peek into my camera while I was taking photos and ask if I had siblings. Even taxi drivers, after a 5-minute ride, would ask if I was married. It became a running joke with me. Wherever I went, someone would ask about my love life within the first 10 minutes. But it was never awkward, it was almost endearing. Another revelation hit me while staying in a small coastal town. I was talking to a young man who had moved back from Manila to help his family run a bakery. He asked me about my parents, my career, and whether I planned to settle down. I shared what I could, and then he said something profound. Here, we ask personal questions because we want to know who you are, not just what you do. Life is short. We want to connect while we can. I laughed at first. It sounded dramatic, but then I realized he was right. It wasn't about prying. It was about building relationships fast, about valuing people, and about making everyone feel included. By the end of my first month in the Philippines, I started adopting this habit myself. When I met other travelers, shop owners, or locals, I asked personal questions, gently and politely. And the results were incredible. People opened up to me more quickly, shared stories they wouldn't normally tell a stranger, and often went out of their way to help. Asking questions about someone's life became a form of currency for trust and friendship. Of course, there were funny moments too. I once told a local that I was single, and before I knew it, I had been set up on 3 blind dates within a week. One vendor at a market insisted I meet her nephew, and another shopkeeper wrote down her cousin's phone number for me. It was overwhelming, but in the most humorous and heartwarming way. I realized quickly that asking personal questions is also a way Filipinos show care and sometimes matchmaking instincts. I started to think about how this contrasts with my American mindset. Back home, we guard personal information fiercely. Age, relationship status, family background, these are all private, often shared slowly over months or years. But in the Philippines, it's shared instantly. It felt a little chaotic at first, but ultimately, it made connections richer, deeper, and faster. It made travel feel less transactional and more human. By the second month, I began to understand the rhythm of it. The first question is always a simple introduction. Where are you from? Then comes curiosity about family, siblings, parents, hometown. After that, life questions, marriage, career, relationships. And finally, a question about daily habits or personal opinions like, do you like Filipino food? Or do you enjoy fiestas? It's a gentle cascade from surface level to personal level, always with warmth, always with laughter. I even started teaching some Americans about this habit. I brought a friend from the US to a small town, and within 15 minutes, she was panicking because someone asked her age. I laughed and said, "Don't worry, it's a compliment. They're interested in you." Slowly, she started to see it the same way I had. It's not nosiness, it's inclusion. It's a way of saying, you are welcome here. One evening, while sitting on a rooftop in Cebu watching the sunset, I reflected on what I had learned. Asking personal questions isn't just a cultural quirk, it's a philosophy of life. It's about creating connections, building trust, and showing genuine interest in others. It's about humanizing strangers in a world that often feels too fast and too detached. And as a blonde American woman traveling through the Philippines, I realized this habit had taught me something profound. Sometimes it's okay to be curious. Sometimes it's okay to be personal. And sometimes it's okay to let others in, even when you just met them. By the time I left the Philippines, I had dozens of stories about personal questions, from children asking me about my love life to elderly women offering advice about my career to neighbors inviting me to family dinners I hadn't even expected. I laughed, I learned, and I felt more connected to people than I ever had on any solo trip before. Filipinos ask personal questions right away, yes. It startled me at first, yes. But it also made me feel seen, included, and cared for in a way that is hard to explain if you haven't experienced it firsthand. It's a cultural habit, a social glue, a bridge between strangers. And as much as I am an American used to privacy, I will forever cherish the warmth and curiosity of the Filipino people, who made me feel like I belonged, even if only for a moment. By the end, I didn't mind the questions at all. In fact, I found myself missing them. I missed the stories, the laughter, the connections that began with simple, honest curiosity. I realized that asking personal questions isn't rude in the Philippines. It's love in its own chaotic, beautiful, and wonderfully Filipino way. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.